Most people, they think financial planning is about picking the right investments. But here's the truth. If all that gets focused on is money, you're never going to help a family build 100 plus years of abundance and impact. So in this session of the Generational Wealth Masterclass, I'm going to show you the real generational wealth planning process. A plan, not just to manage money, but to transform lives. So if you'll stick with me, we're going to sit down and have a conversation, because at the end of this session, you're going to see that the best solutions aren't found in products. They're rooted in education, strategy, and intentionally building a family's legacy. So gentlemen, welcome to the Generational Wealth Masterclass.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So let's talk about, from where you're standing, give me a definition of what you think a financial plan is.
For me, it would be essentially a blueprint of what you would, one, need, and two, how you're going to execute the financial stability that you would need post-retirement.
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 Okay, good. Okay.
I would say a financial plan, the way my brain processes is just what everything looks like. What's the big picture of where you stand financially? I believe a lot of people don't really understand and know where they are as far as the net worth, assets, and liabilities.
Yep.
So at least that's how I look at it.
Yeah, no, so I like that. Yours isn't wrong. There are no wrong definitions. The key is that a financial plan is like a blueprint, like you said, of not only where am I today, but when we think about it, is where do I want to go? Where do I eventually want to be? And how do I start building towards that and creating a plan to get there? So I like to compare it this way. We're going to get into the specifics, because what I want to talk a little bit about today is the Certified Financial Planner Board has defined 6 steps to a quality financial plan. And so we'll get to the 6 steps, but I want to really talk about kind of more what it looks like from a bigger picture. So you guys younger, but have you planned a family vacation yet?
No,
you done that?
I have not.
You've not?
No.
Okay.
Need to.
So tell me let's talk a little bit about what would you do if you're going to plan a family vacation?
Well, first off, I'd create a budget.
Yeah, okay, right. You
Big money guy. Big money guy.
You probably don't want to plan a vacation that you can't afford.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
So you'd plan a budget. What's a few other important elements of
Destination.
Destination.
My wife being happy.
What do you think, Dom?
Definitely a budget, because like Matthew said, you definitely want to stick in a range of how much I want to spend. I'm sure you'll go over that if you go with your wife. But definitely destination and just a budget.
Okay. What about manner of getting there? Are we going to fly?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would be really, really poor planning if we planned a driving trip to Europe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of have to think through, like, how are we going to get there? How long are we going to stay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's all these different elements that go into it. I'll make a statement because I find this to be true. I find most families spend more time planning their family vacation than they do putting together a financial plan and what they're going to do with their money.
Wow.
Would you agree or disagree with that statement?
Yeah. I feel like, and I would even say a lot of us are so focused in the joy of the now that we neglect the joy of the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I would even say, in one sense, you know, like, what's the purpose of a budget? Why do you even do an everyday budget? Why do you do a budget?
Whew, that's a broad question. There's many answers, but for me, I like to know where I'm at. Like,
Okay.
not out of a scarcity or a fear thing. I just like to know where I stand, because one, if anything unexpected comes, and two, like, me and my wife are planners. We
Okay.
like to know the steps to
Yep.
everything. And like, she more so than me, but if anything kind of throws that haywire, it's like, all right, we need to have a just in case plan. So I like to know where I stand at all times.
What about for you, Dom? Why do a budget?
I think it's very important to have a budget. I'm actually listening to a podcast where they're talking about this right now, and they the way they explain it is you kind of want to have that anchor, you know, because if you're out in the sea and, you know, the waves are coming and they're hitting you, you know, you're going to float far and far and far away from the surface. So you need to have an anchor so that way you have an understanding of where you are, because if my car breaks down, well, I need something that's going to anchor me down to keep me, you know, because expenses pop up left and right. So I'm sure you know.
True.
You know.
Yeah.
So
I would even say, I think like for us, my wife and I, like our budgeting, we recently started like budgeting down to like the macros, like the super tiny stuff. But what it was the conversation was because it came up like, how do we steward the things we've been given better?
Yep.
Like, how are we going to, one, take what God has given us, maximize upon that, but then at the same time, like treat it well, but also like we have dominion over that. And how do we steward it well now while also putting forth towards the later? And so that's kind of where our headspace has been at, is we want to take advantage of everything we can now. But also at the same time, like plan for our son, plan for vacations. It's allowing us, I feel like our budget is allowing us to steward the gifts we've been given well.
Yep.
But at the same time, it's allowed us to experience joy in other places of our life because things aren't going where we don't know them.
Okay, so what I want to anchor onto this point, because that's the idea of a financial plan. So financial plan, in one sense, you think of a budget. A budget is like, what am I going to do with my money maybe for the next week or the next month, right? Mm-hmm. But a financial plan just simply expands that out. What am I going to do with my money for the next year? What am I going to do with my money for the next 5 years? What am I going to do with the next money for the 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years, right? And so things that don't get planned, like a vacation, like if somebody just walked in and said, I'm going on vacation, you're like, well, where are you going? I don't know. How long are you going to be gone? I don't have any idea. How long are you going to stay? No idea. When are you coming back? Don't know. You'd be like, you're crazy, right? And they would agree with you. But how many people are living their lives financially like with, where are you going? I don't know.
Yeah.
How long are you going to need your money to last? I don't know. You replace vacation with money and they're living in that insanity. You know people like this, right? Unfortunately, we've had people come into our office who are like this.
Yeah.
And that is the idea of a financial plan. I think sometimes, people think of budgeting as a dirty word. And I'm like, no, budgeting is just telling your money what to do instead of your money telling you what to do. Mm-hmm. You guys ever had this experience? Found out you're going to get a bonus, an inheritance, or any extra money that you weren't expecting. And you sat down and maybe you made a little plan. Like, I'm going to go do this with it. I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to do this with it. And then the money came in and it was gone before you even got halfway through the list. Anybody else other than me?
That happened to me this weekend.
Without a budget, that's your money. Your money will tell you what to. Money's a bully.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The next thing I want to concentrate on is, so if we say a financial plan is about telling your money what to do, the other part of that is money is simply a tool, right? Have you known people who have used money as manipulation, right? So if we don't put money in its proper place, then money can be thought of as something that can be used to manipulate, but it also can enhance family dynamics. Mm-hmm. So a financial plan, although called a financial plan, is not just, that's why we call it a generational wealth plan, not a financial plan. Mm-hmm. Because what we want to think about is it is wealth that is a tool, it's abundance that we can use generationally. And when we think generationally, we think relationally. And so I don't want, you can have somebody run a financial plan, but if all it is financial, you've now taken the emotion. So I want to ask you both a question, and Dom, we're going to start with you. Okay. So when someone focuses only on the financial side, but misses the relational side of a plan, what comes up for you when I say that? Because we've been talking about this here as a company. What comes up for you?
What comes up for me is if you focus so much on the financial aspect of everything, you lose the relationship side of a lot of things. So for example, myself, if I'm just strictly focused on the financials and I'm just trying to make as much money as I possibly can, then I may lack the relationship that I would like to have with my daughter.
Yeah.
I may miss a lot of things because I'm chasing so much of the money. And I may not be able to pass on wisdom to my daughter about how she should steward the money that God has placed in my life. So that's what comes to mind for me.
That's so good. Matthew, what about you?
I would even say to ask the question, would you turn your family into a number?
Ooh.
And so in that, it's like, do you believe the relationship you've created, the only result of it is a number?
Yeah.
And so like, one thing my wife and I always talk about, school comes a lot, right? And not the financials of school, but school.
Yeah.
It's like, what are we going to do with Elliot? For context, I have an 8-month-old son and we're already trying to get on it because the world is the world. Let's be right.
Yep.
And so in that, it's like, well, how do we know that he's going to get the right education, or how do we know he's going to be in the right social situations or not be surrounded by all these things? And like one day I remember my wife and I were talking about it. It's a very stressful thing. Okay.
Yep.
Nobody prepared me for that. But it was like, okay, well, do we believe that we're going to build such trust with our son that we know no matter what situation he's faced with, he's going to be good.
Yeah.
He's going to know what to say. He's going to know who he is. Right. Same thing with a financial plan and a family plan. Once you create that relationship, you know that whatever gift you pass on, their inheritance, you know it's going to be done well. You know it's going to be stewarded well. You know you can trust them with it.
That's right.
And so when you see your family is just a number where you're like, how can I maximize the most performance for my inheritance and this and that? It's no, how can I like make the most? Of course, there's practicalities. We want to improve. We want to grow. But also at the same time, how can I raise them up so where I can trust them, to where I can know that this is going to be done right and done well?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. I mean, and so we're gonna step into, again, the Certified Financial Planning Board has what they call the 6 steps of a financial plan, the 6 plans of the process. And then what, as an advisor, our responsibility to that. So we're gonna talk a little bit about step number 1, as they define it, is you have to establish a relationship. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I like having a physician or a doctor that I can go to that's my doctor who knows my situation versus going to an emergency room or a clinic where somebody sees me very quickly and then tries to prescribe something based on, well, I know you're taking these other medications instead of, so they're trying to solve my problem quickly. Let's talk about what's the important element of having a relationship with someone before you ever even started doing anything for them financially.
I would say the importance is trust.
Yes.
Relationship equals trust. So
that's good.
With that, if you don't know me, or if I don't know you, or if I'm working at, some financial planner down the street, you're just a number. Like I said before, it's just a number. But if I know you and you know me, and I'm not just your finance guy, right? I'm your friend. Some would even consider family because we're in the deep with them.
That's right.
But if you don't trust me, then you're just a number, But if you do trust me, then I'm family. I'm a part of this. I'm in there with you. And I think that relationship is the biggest part, because if there is, then you know my situation, then you know it, and I know yours. And we're in this together.
Yeah.
And so when we're in this together, when you grow, I get to grow.
Yeah, I want to tie this together, and I'm going to bring the next one. So number 2, that's establishing the relationship. So the family aspect of that is important. Number 2 says to gather client data and goals. This one bugs me a little bit because we've now put data and goals together almost like they're the same thing. You see, and I want you to see this, right? Data is just data. Data is just numbers. Data is, it's information, but it's simply just information. And then they put on here goals. I like to use a different word, which is what's your intention. Because sometimes a goal, you can have a good goal that comes out with the wrong intention. You could have a goal to go raise a certain amount of money and treat all the people around you horribly. And so you had the wrong intention around that. But as we've talked about 100 plus years of abundance and impact, what have you seen, at least so far, on how helping someone understand their intentions helps us then better understand how to help them with their goals and then to look at the data?
That's a really good question. I think when you lean into the intention part of it first, then you can really pinpoint exactly what the client needs and how we can help them.
Yep.
So just to piggyback off of what you said about relationships, if I don't know you, if I don't know the client, how can I pinpoint exactly what you need to have surgery? Like if I'm a doctor, if someone comes in and they're having a headache, but then I prescribe them pain medicine, for their heart or something like that, then it's like, you have to know the client in order for you to specifically help them with whatever they have going on financially.
Well, I'm going to take it to a bigger picture. What if somebody came in and had a headache and you prescribed some aspirin or some ibuprofen? What they had was a brain aneurysm about to happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But you didn't do the full exam. You didn't do the full scan. You didn't know. You just decided to give them a pill. Right? That would be unintended consequences.
Correct.
Right? You may have given the right diagnosis for the temporary headache, but there were unintended consequences of you not digging deeper. We don't ever think about that, especially when our passion is 100 plus years of abundance and impact. You actually come up with different answers. And I've seen this happen so many times, is when we can help a family think for 100 plus years, what they think of for their goals and intentions are different than what they might want to do if it was only for a lifetime or,
Yeah.
their lifetime and their kids' lifetime. They start thinking differently. And so our passion around this generational wealth really comes and shines over this 100 plus years, because yes, you can analyze the data, but I want to analyze the data in the lens of 100 plus years, not in a lifetime. I mean, I do want to know in a lifetime, right? But I want to also have a bigger vision for that, which comes down to number 3, which is analyze the data. Now, before we talk about this, I want to give you guys a perspective, which is even when you're analyzing or looking at the data, the lens through which you're looking at the data, are we looking through the data through 100 plus years lens? Are we looking at the data through a one generation lens? Are we looking through the data at a lens of just simply education planning? You see how each different lens would change the way that you analyze the data? So what comes up for you when I say that?
Well, I think, let's put it this way. It's ROI.
Which is?
Return on intention.
And
so if you view on something as just gains, return on investment, a lot of times there's impacts in other areas that you don't realize. But when you analyze it with return on intention, when you analyze it to be intentional, when you're purposeful, when you know what you're going for, right? When you analyze it that way, things are different.
Yeah.
When you know what you're doing, when you know your goals, when you know who you are and where that comes in from even a financial perspective, your return on intention is going to be healthier and even sometimes better for you and your family and your surroundings and even your financial place than just return on intention and gains. And so when you're not looking at it from even just a monetary standpoint, when you're looking at the entire picture and not just one color,
yep,
it all begins to blend together to make this beautiful piece of art.
That's right. Actually, so if you guys had a chance to read my book?
Yes.
At the Bistro with Bob. If you haven't, you need to get a copy. You can get a Kindle copy for 99 cents on Amazon. But the reason I bring this up is because we talk a lot about this. Bob, who was my mentor for a number of years, his Pritchard principles, we're talking about how to analyze data. His Pritchard principles did a lot on how I even think about kind of analyzing the data, because he started with, and we talk about each one of these principles inside of the book, celebrating relationships, but turning this into using common sense and pursuing joy. And one of the things that I find, and I'm going to caution you guys too, because you'll run into clients or people who may come in, and one of the reasons that we encourage families to think about getting a second opinion on what they're doing is you don't know the lens that somebody built your plan out of. Now, what I've got to caution you against is sometimes it might be like you've got a temptation to go, well, that advisor messed up or that advisor should have known more. I'm just going to tell you, I'd never, ever attack another advisor. That's my advice, because I don't think it's the advisor's fault. I think we live in an industry. I've kind of coined the term the generational wealth heist. I think there is a mindset and a thinking going on from a generational wealth standpoint that the industry and the government have trained people to think a certain way that is actually causing more money to go to the governments and the institutions, and that's for another time. And I think then the advisors get caught sometimes in a groupthink. They get caught in a way of, I'm just doing education planning, so I'm going to analyze this from an education planning standpoint rather than 100 plus years of abundance and impact. And so the importance of being able to look at it from those different principles gets to be super important. You look like you want to say something.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good.
I thought you had a thought. I thought you had a thought percolating in there. So we've established a relationship. We've got their data and their intentions. We've analyzed the data. Now it says it's time to develop and put together recommendations. Now, this is an important thing where you go back to all of this is building on each other. What are your 100 plus years intentions, right? What are you intending to have happen? What lens do we analyze the data through? Now we will build the recommendation. And here's what's been interesting to me. I can't tell you how many clients I've had come to me who's like, hey, I was talking to my attorney and he says I need to do XYZ trust. I was talking to my CPA and he says I need to implement XYZ tax strategy. And I, again, having been in this business 20 plus years, I'm like, okay, our teams, having done this for a number of years, like, okay, that may be right. Let's go back to what are your intentions? As I remember one particular trust, I've seen it, you tried to use it 2 or 3 times. It's great tax strategy. It's great estate strategy. when you look at it from a family planning strategy, it has the potential to do some real disruption to some relationships if not executed correctly. And I've seen it executed incorrectly a couple of times. And so families come in and like, my attorney says this is a great idea. Like, what's a great idea from a tax standpoint and a state standpoint? It may not be such a good idea from a relational standpoint. Can we talk about what your intentions are? Because that may not be the very best trust for you. There actually might be a different structure. There might actually be something different. But all of that, you guys see how the reason there is the process, it all builds from the very beginning. You've got to have trust in the relationship. You've got to know who they are. You've got to understand what their intentions are. You've got to take their data and you've got to put the right lens on it before you ever tell them what you're going to recommend.
Yeah.
Right. And so even when people are like, well, I just want to open up, we're dealing with this right now, working with the client of, hey, I'd like to open up a Roth IRA. Okay, great. That may be a fantastic idea, but can we take a step back and look at everything that you're doing and figure out what your long-term intentions are? Like we were talking about, I'll even kind of add this in because it adds to the color. We were talking to a gentleman who's not married right now and has no children. And he's looking at everything. He's like, well, I need a will and I need a life insurance policy and I need da-da-da-da. It's like, well, can we go look at your plan? It's not that you don't need a will and it's not that you don't need an insurance policy. But based on what your intentions are, not being married yet, not having kids. So there's some things that you always, when you put together a plan for someone, you've got to leave enough room for flexibility, right? You don't ever want to lock somebody into a decision that they can't undo, especially if you see potential things on the horizon. That's one mistake I've seen done in a lot of financial planning is it may be a great strategy, but it locks people into permanent decisions they can't undo, that they might need to undo based on what their intentions are. And so in running an entire financial plan or a generational wealth plan for someone who doesn't even, in one sense, it sounds crazy, right? I don't have kids yet. I'm not married yet we're going to go run a generational wealth plan. Yeah, we are, because we want to be, kind of like Stephen Covey. I want to begin with the end in mind. I want to help you. I want you to help you think this out. So all we want to do is, it's not that you don't need a will or life insurance. Have you covered all the other bases for someone in your situation needs to cover? Because a will becomes really important and life insurance becomes really important. When you have someone in your life you need to leave assets to. And so it's not that you don't need to direct that, but what's the right order of doing everything? And I want to be very careful for anybody who's watching. He's like, you're telling this guy not to get a will or life insurance? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
If you've only got so much energy, or there are other things that you're missing right now that you need to go take care of, and we'll get all of that done. And that's the point of the recommendations. Get it all done in the right order. So what comes up for you guys when I talk about it that way?
Listening to you talk about all of this, what comes up for me is just simply life. And how, when you're functioning, let's just say you have a goal in mind and you want to get to that specific goal. Well, you may be functioning all over the place, but in order for you to get to that goal, you have to get everything in order and then start taking the necessary steps to get to that goal. Same thing when it comes to financials. If you have an end goal in mind, okay, well, we want to see where you stand, so that we can take the proper steps to get you to the end goal. Is that
No, it makes total sense. Actually, this is what came up from you coach wide receivers, right? Over at St. Paul's.
Yes,
okay. So if you had a wide receiver who came into you and he said, hey, look, I spent all summer training with the linemen. I've been on their diet. I've been doing their exercise program. It's like he comes in all bulked up and what would you say to him?
You're out of order.
Right? So wait, the training plan wasn't wrong. Like, that's not a bad training program if you're going to be an offensive lineman.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a terrible training program if you're going to be a wide receiver.
Right. Yeah. And that's exactly, that's a great point. Exactly what I'm saying. You have to just get in order and understand that you have to get from point A to point B before you can jump to the end goal. So if the end goal is for you to have a will and have a trust and stuff like that, then you have to make sure everything's in order before you get there. And I think that's where we kind of step into play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would even say to that, like, flexibility. I loved how you mentioned flexibility, because I think that's very important. No one likes to be held down. No one likes to be trapped. But I will say to that, flexibility is important just from the simple fact of, I am not the same man I was 5 years ago.
Yep.
Right? I mean, granted, 5 years ago I was 20.
Right.
I turned 26 in like 2 weeks. But even in that, seeing so many things change. And when you're talking about that young man who's single and has no kids, I promise you, when even a year ago, before I had a son, even my thought processes were so different.
Yep.
And so in that, flexibility is important because you will change. Your intentions will change. Your mindsets will change. And so when you have those intentions and your goal as a single bachelor, you're just like, all right, let's go get it. And then when you have a family, you're like, okay, I have to take care of my wife. And you have kids and you're like, all right, I want to pass on to my children. And it's like, well, a few years ago when you were single, you said you wanted the most money possible and you wanted to do it this way and this way and this way. And you're locked in.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, even our fiduciary duty is to say, hey, let's pump the brakes a little bit.
Yep.
What is this going to look like if this happens?
That's
then
right.
it's like, oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
And that's why we're supporting you.
That's
know?
right.
So that's what I would just say. Like, flexibility is important because things change.
That's good. So once you put together the recommendations, you take the recommendations to the family. You want to get their feedback. I can tell you we've had times where when we've looked at their intentions and we put together the recommendations and came back, they were like, you know what, we were talking and we thought of this and this. We forgot to tell you about that. So then sometimes the recommendations need the flexibility. You're going to change. Like, oh, well, now that I understand that, we actually want to do this in a different order. But you get to the point that it's time to actually put the plan into place. The next role that you have to take on in this role is actually making sure it gets done. I don't know if you've noticed, but these people are busy.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't drive them actually getting the appointment with the attorney, getting the insurance policy in place, doing all the thing, getting the investments, helping them if need to do a values exercise, getting them the exercise and holding them accountable to a time limit, it's going to be done. If you don't do that, guess what? They're going to be at exactly the same point when they came in the first time in 6 months.
Yeah.
They're not going to get any of it done. And so you've got to hold their feet accountable, which is why you have to prioritize the things that need to be done because people have a limited amount of space. It's why I go back to the will and the life insurance policy. There may be 7 things he needs to do before he does those 2. I don't know. We haven't done his plan yet, right? And if you had him do those 2 but miss the other 5, it might do things out of order. And he's only got so much bandwidth to do the things that are important. Like it may take him a year to get everything done. I hope not. But people are people and you never know what you're going to run into. So you got to make the first things first so that they're getting the right priorities done. And then we'll finish up with this. It's the last step is monitor and update. If I was going to say the biggest mistake I watch most people come in with a mindset on is, well, okay, so I did a financial plan. I'm done. They want to think they're done. And let's go back to kind of the vacation planning. Hopefully you don't just go on one vacation. I went on one vacation. I'm done. I hope not. I hope you get to go on a vacation on a regular basis. I'd have you think of the financial plan as exactly the same thing because it all integrates together. Do you pay taxes every year? Yeah, you do, right? So you probably want the tax planning aspect of your, who enjoys paying extra taxes?
No one.
No one, right? So part of why you implement and work with someone like our team is that we want to help you look and say, are there ways to reduce or change your tax liability? Most people's biggest mistake is that they go through life not knowing what they don't know. They end up paying too much in taxes. They end up making money mistakes because they're not utilizing the professionals. If I were going to say the number one mistake people make with us is they don't utilize us enough. Like tell the people that you work with, hey, before you make any financial decision, before you buy the car, make me your first phone call. Even if I don't know the answer specifically, I've got people on our team who know the answer. I've got people who know the answer, or I can refer you to someone who knows the answer. And it might just be that I go, whoa, wait a minute, don't do it that way. Here's a better way to do it because on your 100-year plus plan, that might take you a little bit off. And I'm going to throw a lot of analogies out as we go, but you guys know this fact that, so let's say a plane starts in California and is going to Hawaii. If it's off just 1 degree, have you guys seen this? Like how far off if it's just off by 1 degree, you'd never notice it in the beginning. But by the time, like it's a completely different trajectory. They are nowhere near Hawaii by the time that they get there. And all they were off was by 1 degree.
Wow.
And so people are like, well, I don't want to update and implement I don't want to update my financial plan. Why? Because if you're off just a little bit, how could that impact 100 plus years? The importance of keeping it updated and utilizing us as a partner. We've got a society and a world that tells us we have to run alone. And that's what I want our message to be for people. We want 100 plus years of abundance and impact for you, but you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
That's good.
We want to walk alongside you and help you do that. So we'll finish with just takeaways from today and even that part of the conversation.
I think it's really good because people need to know that, like, one, you have to consistently monitor and update, and not in the sense of like, oh, making sure everything's perfect, all this, that's why we're here.
Right.
That's part of our job.
Yep.
But like, be intentional.
That's it.
That is the thumbnail. Be intentional. Be intentional with what you own. Our job is to be intentional with you. But it is your job, it is your assets, it is your family, it is your abundance. Be intentional with it.
Yeah.
It's worth it.
Absolutely. It's so good.
That's good. My biggest takeaways are just stay consistent, be intentional, and have an understanding that you don't have to do this alone, kind of like what you said. That's why we're here. We're going to walk you step by step, but first you have to just understand where you are and where you want to be. And we'll walk with you step by step to get you ultimately where you want to be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So before we finish up, so this is the first class of our Generational Wealth Masterclass. We're going to do more of these discussions and talk just about how we want to help families build 100 plus years of abundance and impact. But between now and then, if you want to keep up with everything that we're doing, why don't you get subscribed to our Kingdom ROI Messenger newsletter? This newsletter comes out every 6 months. There's so much rich information in here. Stuff on planning, stuff on investing, stuff on generosity, and so many different resources that I couldn't even go over. I mean, I'll even tell you just really quick, we talked a little bit about the Great Wealth Heist. There's a Great Wealth Heist assessment that's inside of this. So you can get a copy of our newsletter. We'll put a link in the description on how to subscribe to that. If you want a link to the Wealth Heist assessment, that will also put a link in the description. But thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Generational Wealth Masterclass. We look forward to being with you on a regular basis. God bless you. Have a fantastic day.